the essay question I was set was, will Britain become even more free market after Brexit? And I thought that was an interesting question because I don't know whether from here in Brussels that you look to the UK as some sort of free market utopia, but we certainly don't where we're sitting at in Westminster. And actually, Martin, some of your graphs showed this, although the UK performs relatively well on the Economic Freedom Index. I think I'm right in saying that that graph measuring whether countries have gone forwards or backwards since the year 2000, actually the UK was the second worst performer in terms of trajectory, gone backwards. Greece was the only one worse than that. All of that said, I am, from the UK's position, a relative optimist, a relative and qualified optimist. There is, it's true to say, I think in British debate at the moment, far too much unqualified optimism and unqualified pessimism. There are certain elements of the Brexit campaign who believe that in virtue of having voted for Brexit, the UK is now guaranteed to become nirvana within a short number of years. And there is a good chunk of people who are on the Remain side who believe that the apocalypse is now inevitable. I think the truth lies somewhere between those two cases. And in looking, Martin, at your opening presentation on where are the potential gains or challenges, I think that I would look to in the UK to say that there are two. One is an opportunity to deregulate, or at least to stem the tide of regulation. You showed the tick up in the number of rules and laws in Denmark. It's a similar picture in the United Kingdom. And rightly or wrongly, that has been blamed in large part on our membership of the European Union. We will not be able to apportion blame in that direction once the Brexit period and transition is over. But it's worth reflecting, I think, if you are looking at the UK as an exemplar of a free market country compared to other EU member states, exactly how bad things have actually become. Your graph, Martin, showed 2000 to 2015. I'm going to go back a little further than that and look at one sector of the British economy, the key sector of the British economy, our financial services sector. In 1980, there was one regulator for every 11,000 people employed in British financial services. By the time of the financial crisis, there was one for every 300 people employed in financial services. If we continue on that trajectory, by the year 2070, there will be more regulators than people actually employed in financial services. Everybody, from the lowliest cashier to the highest paid hedge fund manager, will be able to have their own personal regulator standing over their shoulder throughout their working life. So that's just to give you an idea of how we've gone backwards thus far. A lot of this homegrown, I hasten to add. And in terms of the quantum of regulation, not just the number of people enforcing it, it's some time since I looked at the Financial Services Regulatory Handbook, but the last time I did, and this is supposedly an industry that has been under-regulated, financial services, the Regulatory Handbook contained 10 sections. Those sections are divided into 11 subsections. The subsections are made up of 14 subsections. The subsections then divided into 11 subsections, and the average subsection has 66 paragraphs. There are over 1 million paragraphs of regulations in the rule book. I think we can become even more free market than this without straining ourselves enormously. That said, I'm not actually expecting the UK to repeal much of the stock of European Union regulation. There was, I think, at the referendum some agreement between the Remain side and the Leave side in Britain that there was a lot of unnecessary and interfering red tape and regulation that came from Brussels. There was one thing that the two sides agreed on. It was probably that. But what is going to happen is that the present stock of EU regulations and directives is going to be enshrined into British law. The rather optimistic hope is that the British Civil Service will then methodically work through all of these regulations, telling us which ones to repeal. The British Civil Service don't have a great history of working methodically through regulations and telling the politicians which ones to repeal, so I'm not very hopeful that much of it will be repealed. But I do think that you might find that the United Kingdom improves somewhat, at least relative to other EU countries, not because we will deal with the stock of regulation, but because we will deal with the flow of regulation. And I am expecting, in most, not in all areas, that from 2020 onwards, the UK economy is not likely to be as tightly regulated in a certain number of areas as the average EU economy. I think on the last panel discussion, Uber came up as an example. My general prediction would be that the gig economy, the digital economy, and new patterns of working, particularly the colossal rise in self-employment, is likely to be less tightly regulated in Brexit Britain than it will be by the average remaining EU member state. The second area to be modestly optimistic is trade.
How many areas are we going through? Just
trade is the last.
Okay, great.
Two, regulation and trade. Trade, again, your presentation suggested non-tariff barriers as being one of the big problems. I think this is the big opportunity, chance that confronts Britain, is to rediscover our free trading traditions. But the challenge is how liberal and sensible are we going to be on non-tariff barriers. Politicians of all stripes have suggested that we now have an opportunity to strike trade deals across the world. But the minute this was mooted with the United States of America, there was widespread panic over the issue of chlorinated chicken. This was apparently going to act as a block on actually agreeing a comprehensive trade deal with America. So I think there's a challenge for the UK on whether we are actually going to get these free trade agreements over the line or not. So I'm uncertain whether we will become more free market. The productivity puzzle, and why productivity is doing so badly across Europe as a whole, I think is in substantial part due to the growth of population. If you get your workforce to comply with regulations rather than to produce things, you would not expect your productivity to improve. On non-tariff barriers to trade, I think that Brexit presents an opportunity, but no guarantees. So I am not sure whether over the next 5 years Britain will become even more free market, but I promise you it will be exciting to watch.